My name is Emily, and I was raised up at Sunrise Apples on our family apple orchard located in the picturesque rolling hills of Washington state. Our orchard has been in my family for 40 years. My folks, Robert and Linda, have operated this orchard since the year they married, 1983. They both grew up in farm families and always wanted to have some land of their own to grow on. I have an older brother, Jake, 35M, who never really got into life on the farm. Right from when we were kids, our personalities and interests were chalk and cheese. I was the one running after Dad in the orchard, asking him countless questions about how to prune trees and how many varieties of apples we have. Jake, on the other hand, liked to stay indoors with his nose buried in books about faraway places and exciting careers. Growing up, Jake always talked about moving to the big city and becoming a hotshot lawyer. He'd complain endlessly about the early mornings, the physical labor, and how mind-numbingly boring small-town life was. I remember one when he was 16 and I was 13. It was harvest time, and everybody had to work. Jake was put out to pick, but he just would not settle to it. Kept knocking out his phone to check it, grumbling he was missing some party in town. Dad finally lost it and blew up at Jake, telling him to either do his share of the work or get out. Jake stormed off, and later I found him sitting by the creek that runs through our property. He was scribbling furiously in a notebook, and when I asked him what he was doing, he showed me a list of law schools he wanted to apply to. "I'm getting out of here, he said. This place is sucking the life out of me." While I loved everything about the orchard, autumnal apple fragrance, satisfaction at the success of this year's harvest, and the company of other local farmers somehow just felt right. I loved helping Mom in the farm stand, chatting with regulars who'd been buying our apples for years. I even liked the hard work of pruning in winter, the agony of cutting out the branches of trees, then to see their bare branches and what bounty they would bring in their time. While Jake set off for Seattle to become a lawyer, I pulled down the fort at home and graduated with a degree in agriculture from the local community college. I was working on the orchard full-time, learning everything I could from my parents. Dad taught me about soil management and pest control, while Mom showed me the business side of things, accounting, marketing, and customer relations. While he did visit less and less, always with an excuse that he was too busy studying or doing an internship, when he came home, it seemed like a stranger again. He would speak of fancy internships in huge law firms, of parties he had attended, and of people of high repute whom he was meeting. As if he wanted to impress us with something that would only drive us further apart. It was during that time that I met my husband, Tom. He was a new teacher in the local high school and became one of the visiting groups with his kids. The initial day we met, we started bonding over the love of outdoors and small-town living. Before long, he became a part of the family, learning the ins and outs of the orchard business and pitching in when the busy seasons arrived. 5 years ago this coming summer, our dad took ill, an apparent mild heart attack that luckily did not have any long-term consequences. All the same, the event served as a wake-up call for us all. I can still recall sitting in the waiting room of the hospital, fearing that we'd lose Dad. Jake had flown in from Seattle, looking ruffled and almost out of character with his very expensive suit. After Dad got better, Mom and Dad started talking about retirement and what to do with the orchard. I assumed it was going to go to me because I had been working there my entire life, but then suddenly, Jake took a growing interest in the family business. It seemed to come out of nowhere. He visited more often, became more inquisitive about the orchard's finances, and even came in to help with the harvest. Maybe Jake had finally come around and we could be a pair of orchard partners. And, shoot, I had daydreams of the kids growing up on the farm, cousins as close as Tom and I had been with our cousins from the neighboring farms. Something rang false, though. He was far more interested in the financial statements than the orchard's activities. He'd note how we could optimize things or streamline operations. The guy spewed business jargon that sounded wrong coming from around the apple trees. Last Thanksgiving, our parents had the whole family gather around to present their retirement plan. I thought surely they meant for Jake and me to divide the orchard between us, and we'd run it jointly. I didn't quite believe it, but for the sake of family relations, I'd give it a try. And I remembered how close Jake and I had been as kids, before the farm started to come between us, and I hoped we could get some of that back. Over the next few months, Jake began pushing for changes that could be anything from modernization of operations, to expansion into hard cider production, to even talk of selling off part of the land for a housing development. I resisted, saying we should stick to what we knew and what had worked for nearly 100 years. Tom tried to be a peacemaker by suggesting compromising solutions, but Jake always seemed to have a counterargument at the ready. Things were at their head last month when I was in the barn repairing some stuff on an equipment and heard Jake talking on the phone. At first, I didn't really pay a lot of attention until he said something about forcing her out and full control of the assets. Then I realized he was talking about me in the orchard. My heart started to race. I could feel my blood run cold as Jake related how, by some legal legerdemain, he proposed to end up with full control of the orchard and then turn right around and sell it to some gigantic farming concern for a gigantic profit. He was laughing how easy it would be for him to outmaneuver me since I did not know the first thing about real business. I was devastated. This was more than just a business, this was my home, my heritage, my blood, my entire life. I went to him right away, and my hands just couldn't stay from shaking when I told him what I'd overheard. He tried to deny it at first, but when I pressed him, quoting his own words back at him, he admitted to his plan. He called it wasted potential from the orchard and said that I was too sentimental about the economic opportunity. We ended up fighting with each other like a pair of teenagers, screaming to the hilt. I told him I'd never let him destroy our family's legacy. I was so furious and hurt that right there, I summoned a family meeting. Our parents, Jake's 33 wife Sarah and Tom were all there. As my eyes started to well up, I lamented about the plan to everyone, showing them my notes on his telephone call and all the research on the company he wanted to sell to. Our parents were shocked and livid. Mom started bawling, asking Jake how he could do this to his family. Dad's face was drawn and pasty, looking older than he ever had. Jake started in with the explaining that he was just exploring options for the orchard's future. But it was clear to all of us that he had laid plans to build this kind of double cross for months, maybe years. Sarah had unconcealed shock written all over her face. If truth be spoken, she had barely been married to Jake for 2 years, and I could guess that amidst all this, she might be the one left completely clueless. She kept glancing at Jake and then toward us, perhaps trying to figure out who this man was that she had married who had snuggled in here. The reaction was severe. Our parents instantly canceled their retirement plan and announced that they would be operating the orchard themselves this season. They informed Jake that he was not welcome to continue with the business. Sarah stormed out of the house crying. Jake went after her, still attempting to explain himself. And now, a month later, the family is in uproar. Jake and Sarah have instigated divorce proceedings. Our parents barely speak to Jake. The orchard somehow feels spoiled, an evil spell that affects the very land on which all, literally, of it was built. And even though I did what was best by telling his intention, I can't help but feel guilt as I was the cause of breaking that family apart. And I lie awake at night, remembering the best times we used to have as kids, Jake teaching me how to ride a bike, the two of us building a treehouse in the old oak by the creek. How did we come to this? Tom has been my rock through all of this. He tells me that I didn't cause this situation, Jake did with his greed and dishonesty. But it's hard not to wonder if there was something I could have done differently. Could I have seen this coming? Should I have tried harder to involve Jake in the orchard over the years? It is back to orchard work as usual. The apples take no notice of family drama, pruning and spraying go on as usual. In many ways it is a relief to lose oneself in familiar rhythms of work. Every now and then I look up at the house, half expecting Jake to come pouring out to help like he did when we were kids. So, Reddit, Ida for blowing the whistle on my brother's scheme, even though it's destroyed our family? Should I have tried to handle it differently? I'm struggling to see a way forward from here. Edit, thank you all so much for your responses. I'm really trying to read through them all. Just to answer a few things, well, I have managed the day-to-day activities of the orchard for several years now. My parents still technically own the orchard, but I'm a functional manager. Jake has never managed a business or worked on a farm. He also has a law degree in corporate law. The orchard has made a profit every year for the last 10 years, and we are not in financial trouble. Update 1, guys, it's been 2 months since my last post and so much has happened. I would like to take the opportunity to thank everyone that commented in support and advised me. It really helped me get through some very tough times. First, the good news, my parents have officially changed their will and retirement plan. The orchard passes completely to me now. They have also begun the process of transferring management responsibilities to me now so that the transition will be smoother when the time comes. It's a bittersweet victory, grateful for their trust, but not able to stop himself from thinking that things could have been so much different if only Jake would be true to himself about wanting to be really involved. That brings me to the not-so-good news, Jake has not given up. Literally 1 week after my first post, he brought in a lawyer to the orchard with him. I was in the farm stand when they pulled up, and, well, my heart sank. Tom was with me, and he reached over and squeezed my hand reassuringly before we went out to meet them. Jake and his attorney tried to argue that Jake was entitled to half the business based on some law, kinda obscure, something about inherited family property. He went on to use much legal mumbo-jumbo to describe that, ancestral land rights and presumptive inheritance. At least my parents quickly shot that down too by documentation, showing the orchard had never been inherited, they built it from scratch. Dad even pulled out the original deed of sale from when they bought the raw land back in '83. By the end of the conversation, Jake was furious. He accused us of plotting against him and said we'd regret this. I felt like I was staring at a stranger who wore my brother's face. As the car drove away, I really did find myself wondering what had happened to that boy who used to slip me extra cookies when Mom wasn't looking. But that didn't end the matter. Jake began spinning stories around town that I had manipulated our parents and robbed him of his due inheritance. Some people actually believed him, and we lost a few longtime customers at the farm stand. Mrs. Johnson told me she couldn't support a business built on family betrayal. She'd been buying our apples for Sunday pies for over 30 years now. That broke my heart. Knowing this, I took things into my own hands. I called the Valley Gazette, the local newspaper, and went in to interview about the history of the orchard and what plans me and my dad have for the future. Carefully not mentioning the conflict that had developed with Jake, I indicated that I had grown up working there and needed to do all I could to keep my family's heritage alive. But I spoke of how Mom and Dad had taught me everything I know, the sustainable farming practices we use, and our involvement in the community. I talked about the school tours every fall and the donations that we make to the local food bank, and that we have plans of starting an apprenticeship program with young farmers. The article was a hit. We had a lot of community support, and honestly, sales were up. All my fellow local farmers contacted and offered their support. Old Mr. Peterson, the dairy farmer from down the road, brought over a casserole, telling us to keep our chins up. You can't choose your family, he said, but you can choose to do right by the land. And that's what you're doing. But drama never ends. The week before last, my phone rang and it was an email from Sarah, now his ex-wife. She was crying hysterically, claiming that he was harassing her since the divorce. All was left because, apparently, he held her responsible for not getting in line behind his plan to take control of the orchard. She wanted to come to stay with us for some time, feeling that she no longer was safe in the city. Tom and I have decided to let her stay in our guest house. It's a little cottage on the periphery of our orchard that we generally rent to seasonal workers. Sarah arrived late one night, looking utterly exhausted and scared. As I showed her around the cottage, she broke down crying and continuously apologized for Jake's behavior. Again, I hugged her and told her that none of this was her fault. Now she's been in the orchard with us, helping out in all ways, and, frankly, has talent. She told me one day, as we were sorting apples, that she had always liked coming over to the farm. Jake had always discouraged her from spending any time here. He said it was beneath us, she admitted. But I have always been more at ease here than in our upscale apartment in town. Jake got wind of the fact that Sarah was here with me, and the man went crazy. He actually came back to the orchard a second time, screaming and yelling. He even threatened us. He said that he would take us to court and sue us for alienation of love because we turned Sarah against him. We had to call the sheriff in to remove him from the property. And all I could think as the sheriff's car drove away with Jake in the backseat was us kids playing cops and robbers in the orchard. We're in the processes of getting a restraining order on Jake. It's unreal to be filing anything legally against my own flesh and blood, but we need to protect ourselves, Sarah, and the orchard. I am feeling pretty mixed at the moment. I'm even glad that we're able to secure the orchard and that the whole community has our backs. But I'm sad, really truly sad, and angry for what Jake's become. And deep down inside, part of me still wishes he would snap out of it all the same, but that's not going to happen anytime soon, is it? All I'm thinking about now is the harvest coming up soon, and helping Sarah get back on her feet. The apple orchard was my place of healing, and I hope it can be that for her too. There's something about the rhythm of picking apples, the satisfying weight of a full basket, that helps set things right again. I'll update again if anything major happens. Thanks again for all of your support, Reddit. It means more than you know. Update 2. It's been another 3 months, and boy do I have some surprising news to share. The restraining order on Jake finally went through. He can't come within 500 feet of the orchard, our house, or Sarah. It has granted us some peace to be able to focus on this harvest that has been going on. The day the news came down, I took a walk through the orchard. I touched the rough bark of the trees my parents planted decades ago. It was the first time in months that I could breathe freely. Speaking of harvest, all went extremely well at the orchard this year. Of course, the newspaper article helped. We had record numbers of people coming out to pick for themselves and to see our farm stand. We even needed to get extra help to keep up with demand. Seeing the families out in the orchard, the kids running between the rows of trees, the laughing echoing over the fields, the scene was described as nice. Sarah came into her own here. She worked the farm stand with her very friendly manner and encyclopedic knowledge of all the different kinds of apples. She even started thinking of new recipes for our bakery section, and her apple cinnamon muffins became one of the most favorite pastries we offer. And now the surprising part. Last week, Jake emailed me. He emailed me an apology for his behavior and asked if I would meet him so we could talk. At first, I was wary, remembering the pain he had caused. But after talking it over with my parents and Tom, I decided to meet him at a neutral spot in town, a local coffee shop. I hardly recognized Jake when I saw him. The smart, polished lawyer had disappeared, and with him, the good suits. He had dark circles under his eyes now and a slump to his shoulders that made him appear years older than his 35. He started by apologizing again, this time in person. Then he broke down and told me everything. Clearly, Jake got mixed up with some really sketchy investors out of Seattle. It's a matter of making lousy financial decisions and then being under a mountain of debt. They leaned on him to give up some control of the orchard, which they viewed as prime real estate. When Jake's scheme didn't work out, they came for him. He lost his job at the law firm and has been struggling to find work since. I asked him why in the world he didn't come to us in the first place so we could help him. He said he couldn't because he was too proud and ashamed. He had thought that if he could pull off this one big deal, he could solve all his problems and prove to everybody that he was a big success. As Jake spoke, I remembered the little boy who used to run to me with scraped knees and broken toys, trusting me to fix everything. It was hard putting that image and the man across from me into one, but I could see lost little boy sparkles in his eyes. I said that I appreciated his honesty, but it didn't excuse what he did, I told Jake. The thing is, he said, can't be easily fixed up. He nodded, saying that he didn't want to be forgiven, but he just wanted the both of us to know the full thing. Later that night, I sat down with our parents and told them everything. It was quite a long, tearful discussion. Mum cried about how close Jake and I used to be when we were children. Dad was more skeptical. He thought that maybe Jake was trying to manipulate us again. Still, we gave the benefit of the doubt, if only to want to mend things with Jake. We have resolved to help Jake to pay off his debt, but under very strong conditions. He will go through financial counseling, and he will be required to work on the orchard every weekend for 1 year to compensate us. He is to have absolutely no say in the business decisions, but we're doing it so he has a chance with it to get reconnected with his roots and rebuilding the lost trust. When we told Jake our decision, he started to cry. He hugged each and every one of us, repeated thank you time after time. It was awkward, emotional, but this felt a little step in the right direction to me. Sarah was very hesitant at first, understandable with what the case was like with Jake. But she told me that after a really long talk with her, she was only tentatively hopeful. She's decided she will stay in town and has even started taking classes at the community college in agricultural business. I never thought I'd say this, she told me. But I think I found my calling here on the farm. Me? I'm just trying to put it all in me mind. I'm relieved Jake admitted it, but, on the other hand, he's got me nervous. This is gonna be a long way back for our relationship. One day at a time now, dealing with what I can control, working on the orchard, supporting our family, our community. Last weekend, Jake began to work on the farm for the first time. As he and I pruned the young trees, I explained to him that this would be part of their future shape and how important it was. I remembered how the same thing was when we were little children, when Dad once demonstrated it. For a moment, it seemed that old times had just reinvented themselves again. But then I remembered all that had happened, and I knew things would never be quite the same. Still, as I watched Jake carefully trimming branches, his face screwed up in concentration, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we might grow something new from these old roots. I'll update again, if there's anything major. Thanks for sticking with me, this has been a wild ride. Reddit. Update 3, well, it has been 6 months now since the last time I wrote. I'm happy to say that the situation has finally normalized into the next gear. Jake had been true to his word. He had been turning up to the orchard every weekend, rain or shine, to work off his debt. The first couple of weeks had been really uncomfortable and strained. He had no idea what to do at first, of course, so I had to teach him everything from the get-go. There were moments of frustration on both sides, Jake getting annoyed at his own inexperience and with me, since I had to repeat instructions several times. But soon enough, we found our rhythm again. They say, when Jake concentrates, he learns pretty fast. The confidence would grow, somehow, after every skill he would master. Jim was able to graft his first apple tree a month ago. That look on his face was exactly the same as when we were kids, and he would produce A+ papers to the family. He is no longer the big brother that grew up with me, but piece by piece I am finding remnants of the Jake I once knew, the one that would climb trees with me and have an apple-eating marathon with me. The other day, we sat resting under the shadow of an old Macintosh tree, and he began reminiscing on the time we tried to build a treehouse and ended up with more splinters than planks. We were laughing so much it just hurt our sides, and there, for a minute, it was like these last few years just hadn't taken place. The more surprising development to come out of all this is Jake's newfound interest in the orchard itself. He keeps coming with questions about the various apple varieties, pest control, and even some with suggestions about how to expand our cider production. Obviously, he's been doing some homework on his own. Last week, he had obviously been doing his homework because he presented a thoughtful plan for introducing a new line of organic apple products, and I was impressed. That means he indeed had to listen carefully to all the sustainable farming practices we have in place. Our parents have caught on as well. They are guarded but now allow Jake to sit at some family dinners. Just last week, Dad led Jake on a tour of the new irrigation we put in. I could hear them talking about conservation methods, and it brightened my heart to see them connecting over something so critical to the future of the farm. Sarah is one of the best things that have happened to our operation. Racing to graduation in an agriculture business course, she has been applying her learning to streamline our operation. First, she revolutionized our inventory management system and has some good ideas on how we can increase our web presence. To boot, she and Jake have managed to establish a civil working relationship, which I honestly never thought I would see. There is still tension there, but they both are trying for the orchard and the family. With regard to the orchard itself, we are flourishing. Goodness, we made out like a bandit with all the free publicity from last year's drama. We are a minor local legend at this point. Our farm stand has blossomed into a quaint little country store, and we are selling more than just apples, jams and pies, both home-baked and store-bought, and a new line of hard ciders. Jake's obscure lawyerly expertise even came in handy there, navigating us through all the red tape to get our license to sell alcohol. I've done much soul-searching over the last year and a half. I wouldn't wish this experience on anybody in the world, but I can't help but admit that some good has come out of the tests. Our family bonds have been sorely tried and tested by fire, and they are now stronger than ever. We have all learned some valuable lessons in communication, trust, and the true meaning of honesty. Though Jake has a long way to go before he regains all of our trust, for now, I can be cautiously optimistic about both our future as a family and as a business. Sometimes, I have come to learn that the greatest hardships yield the most unexpected opportunities to grow stronger and reconcile. Thank you, Reddit. You were there through the whole thing, and your support and advice have been invaluable. I hope to never have to post about family drama ever again, but I'm so grateful for this community and the wisdom you have shared.